Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lori Nelson. I'm the Executive Director of She Heroes, and we are doing a Meet Your She Hero event today that we are very excited about. We'll be talking with Natalie Mackey, who is the CEO and co-founder of Winky Lux Makeup. It's a really appealing, kicky kind of brand, and it's just got a whole huge following, and we just can't wait to find out her journey of how she got to be the head of this wonderful makeup company. But before we get started, I'm going to turn things over to our founder, Dr. Sophia Yen, and she has a few words of greeting. Yep.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dr. Sophia Yen. Mom said, claim all your titles. So everybody claim all your titles as you go through life and you work hard and you get those titles. CEO, co-founder, doctor, PhD, master's degree, MBA, JD, whatever. Just claim it all. The background of She Heroes was my sorority sister at MIT. Yes, we have sororities at MIT, Alpha Chi Omega. She brought me in, and her idea was, at the time, she had a 7-year-old daughter, and her daughter's like, Mommy, tell me about physicists. And she went online and she Googled woman physicist, and she got a boring paragraph on Madame Curie. And she's like, in today's day and age, be able to Google CEO makeup company and bam, there's Natalie Mackey, or CEO birth control company, bam, there's Dr. Sophia Yen, or Supreme Court Justice or whoever, and see a dynamic video so that we can inspire the future. We believe that if you can't see it, it makes it harder to be it. Many of us have done it without seeing it, but it's so much easier if you can see it. And so the whole purpose of She Heroes is to provide free online videos highlighting amazing, inspiring women such as Natalie Mackey, CEO and co-founder of Winky Lux, doing things that those with uteri have not done before. So we want to let everybody know you can be whatever you want to be. You just got to work hard and everybody help each other rise. So that is the origin story of She Heroes. I turn it back to you, Lori.
Okay, well, thank you, Sophia. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Natalie Mackey, the CEO and co-founder of Winky Lux Makeup. Hi, Natalie. How are you doing today?
Good, Lori. Thank you for having me.
We're thrilled to have you. And, we usually kind of just jump into these things kind of from the beginning and let everything unfold sort of organically. We're very interested to learn what your journey has been, your life journey, your challenges, your ambitions and history. So why don't we start at the beginning? Why don't you tell me a little bit about your family, where you grew up, were you surrounded by brothers or, what was it like?
I actually have a brother and a sister. I grew up in Georgia by way of South Florida. So we moved when I was in high school to South Florida. I grew up in a really small town. Before that, I'd grown up in a very small town in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia. So I didn't really have a lot of examples of women running companies, at least not big companies. Savannah in general is a really small town. So there's not a ton of industry there. Usually you could be a doctor, a lawyer, or be in the shipping industry or the tourism industry. Those are sort of your choices in Savannah. So most of the time people go to college and then they move to Atlanta. I really, really wanted to move to New York City, and I couldn't just up and move there. I certainly didn't have the funds to do so. So I took a job in finance, which wasn't probably not my dream to work in finance, but I knew that that was a place where I could, there was sort of a I almost want to say like there was a bit of a meritocracy in that industry. It was, if you worked really, really hard, you would often be rewarded. So I was attracted to that. So I ended up working in finance for about 5 years, and then left and started a company that did consulting around licensing. I was really fascinated with licensing. I ended up meeting 2 co-founders while I was living in New York who had really deep experience in the fashion and in the licensing business. So we started this company, and I really kind of brought some of the financial expertise and some of the operational workload. And what I learned then is that no matter what you do, or no matter what you learn in school, or no matter what you learn from someone you've worked for, there's always a new challenge as an entrepreneur. So we started that company. It's actually still in business. And I was there for about 5 more years. So at that point, I was about 10 years into my career, maybe a little bit less, about 9 years. And I was really, during that time, I had seen a lot of different types of consumer businesses. I was always really fascinated with consumer businesses in general. And one thing I would mention, you talked about representation. And when I was working in finance, it was really interesting because a lot of the analyst classes were 50-50 male, female. And then when you looked up at your MDs, your managing directors, who were really the people making big decisions and getting to really do really fascinating work, it went significantly down. I think it was like 5%. So I really didn't like that trajectory. And that was actually friendlier than a lot of industries, but it still seemed so unfriendly to me. And I remember having a interesting discussion with my boss. This is back in, the early 2000s. And he said, you could always, like, lifestyle wise, you could always go into like the marketing side of this industry. And I remember saying to him, I really am not doing this to not have your job. Like, I'm not working this hard to not, I'm trying to get your job, buddy. I'm not trying to do like what, you've pushed every other female analyst to doing eventually.
Yeah,
So,
can I back up a little bit?
Sure.
Because I'm missing a step here. So when you were in high school, were you planning to go to college, and were you thinking that you would major in finance in college? Because that's very unusual.
Yeah, no, I wanted to be a journalist, actually. So, and then during school, I interned at a couple of like media companies, and I determined that what I really wanted to, what I was really passionate about was being in business, and I really wanted to move to New York. So I have to say that taking the job in finance was really truly all about getting a chance to move to New York. And then ironically, they put me overseas for a year. And so I lived overseas I ended up being about a year and a half. And then I finally got to move to New York. So that was part of the dream, was actually just living in the city. So no, I didn't have a clear path like that. But I knew what interested me, and I knew that business in general, I was really curious about it. And I wanted to, I liked the idea, especially in entrepreneurship. I really liked the idea of agency, and entrepreneurship is obviously high risk. So not for everybody, but has a great deal of agency, which makes me excited.
Well, where did you go to college? Did you I just had somebody text me, so I had to tear my attention away for a second. But where did you go to college?
Yeah, I went to school in Texas, and then when I moved to New York, I actually ended up going back to school at night to Parsons. So I think in my heart, I kind of was like a frustrated, what's it called? I was like a frustrated artist. And so, and that's really, when I was a little kid, that's what I wanted to be.
Well, how did things evolve over the years? I mean, so college gave you a real introduction to what became your passion with the finance side of it and business.
I would say what I really learned in undergrad was social skills more than anything. I think that was really what I felt like I took away from that. Like some of my best, some of the skills that I use today were really that. And then it was when I was in postgrad, when I was going to Parsons, that was really interesting because all of the people that I was with, I was going for design thinking. And that was a really interesting group of people because they were all in the industry already. So they were in various industries. They were architects and all the, like, in order to be in those programs, you already have to be working. And so that, I think, is where I learned the most applicable stuff from an academic standpoint. And then the rest of what I think I've learned from entrepreneur has been like in my jobs. So I worked all through college from the very beginning. I worked in high school too. During that time, and everything from, I worked for a vet to working as a secretary or like an assistant And I ended up working for a company that did investor relations. They were almost like a PR company while I was in college. And if you've ever been to like a big corporate conference and you look at all those displays, like someone has to go and set those up. And that was my job. So I was traveling while I was in college. I was also traveling around to lots of different conferences and setting up the booth and printing out the brochures and just doing all the administrative work that went into that. But it was a really fascinating, it was a very cool thing to do. And so I'm kind of grateful in a way that because I didn't have the family background to pay, I knew I would need to help support myself in school and after school. And at the time, I didn't want to get student loans. So and they weren't as accessible at that point. I'm like, this was pre them becoming much more accessible. And so it was because it forced me into working a lot more in school than probably I would have otherwise. And it was just such an incredible experience because there really was nothing. Some schools are amazing at marrying academic and practical, but most I have found are not, with the exception of things like the science fields and the the medical fields, things like that, where there's so much like technical learning when it comes to things like market, and my original major, which was journalism. I mean, a lot of that really came from you have to learn to write and edit, but you get good at it by just doing it. Sure.
Why don't you talk about, it's a big deal to go to the Parsons School of Design in New York City.
Oh, what's the big deal? I mean, Parsons is a pretty cool school, right? It's part of the new school, and it's just a big design hub. And so there's a lot of really great, very experimental stuff that comes out of there. They have a really famous fashion school, which I think is what they're most known for. The new school has an architecture school, and so it's a great creative hub. And then of course it's based in New York City, which is the sort of creative capital of the country. And I think that's the big deal. But I have to say, we have hired more people from I personally have hired more people from FIT than I have from Parsons. Not to poo-poo it, but it can be some of the fields of studies are very esoteric, and some of it's very conceptual. Whereas from FIT is a very tactical, really in the trenches type of school, and I love their graduates.
Hang on.
Can
what's
you
FIT?
describe what FIT is?
Yeah, FIT is a Fashion Institute of Technology, and they also have incredible programs in other design fields, other creative fields. And there's been like a really incredible crop of awesome creative schools that have opened up in the past, I want to say 20 years, places like Savannah College of Art and Design. That's my, the town I grew up in, sort of my hometown. I didn't go to SCAD, but I have lectured there and I've spent a lot of time with their students. And there is a big emphasis on some of these schools that are really teaching the tactics of creative fields. And I think that's super important because in a world where some job functions will be taken over by automation, in my opinion, and we already see it in our current, and we're not like I wouldn't consider what we do as a high tech thing. We certainly are technology enabled, but it's not, the manufacturing and selling of beauty products is not what you consider high tech. That said, we've seen things like AI and blockchain like change the way we do business. So, and I think some of that automation has made some jobs more obsolete the past year. So I think the ability to think creatively is super important. So if someone is inclined towards that, that's something that can't be it can't be replaced so easily.
Well, let's get back to, okay, so you were going to Parsons. You must have met an incredible group of people then. Were they part of the inspiration to kind of expand your horizons and start your own company, or how did all that start?
Sure. They were, and my old business partner had also gone to Parsons, so I was really interested in how she had some really interesting connections as well. That was some more confidence. I was already an entrepreneur when I was going there, but I was in the client services business, so that's a much harder business to scale, and it is more of a it was really fascinating, especially brand licensing. I find that to be like an incredible field. But I during that time, I did a couple of beauty deals, or while we were representing some of these brands. And when we were doing these beauty deals, I remember just being so in love with the beauty industry and thinking it was so cool. And first of all, I love the product. I'm sort of a beauty product junkie. I love skincare. I love makeup. I'm just a huge fan. I always found it a way to sort of escape, and I found it a way to connect with other friends. My sister and I used to do makeup on each other, and we would, I have great memories of us getting ready to go places and doing our makeup. And so I always was drawn to that industry in general. And having seen some of the other more creative industries like fashion, I felt that beauty was really much more like a business. And I just liked consumer goods in general. So I was going to leave my the consulting firm, and I knew I wanted to start something. And so I had a friend that I'd known since college, a guy named Nate Newman, who had been running an e-commerce company that he just sold. And I convinced him to move to New York and start a marketplace, an e-commerce marketplace with me called Glow Concept. And so we started this marketplace, and our thesis was that people would want to be told what type of color cosmetics to buy. And this was back in 2014. So it was kind of ahead of its time. Now you see that a little bit more, but what we did, and marketplaces were also an incredibly popular thing at the time. There was a lot of like chatter. A lot of them have since gone out of business, ironically, but just goes to show you like how markets kind of ebb and flow. So we started this thing, and it had a dynamic, it had an intelligent survey that you would take, and this quiz you would take, and it would tell you all these products to buy. And then we linked out to other people's products. During that time, we knew in order to monetize the marketplace, we would need to have our own brand, which was my dream. I really wanted to have our own brand. I had a very distinct style, and I wanted that to live in the product. I also, having known a lot about the industry through licensing and having, worked with manufacturers in that business, I knew kind of how the products were made. I say kind of because at the time I thought I knew all about how the products were made. And now, having been doing it, 8 years, I know a lot more. So now I look back at myself and think I knew nothing. But at the time I had the confidence to say, okay, we can make some of these products better. And so we launched this really small capsule collection called Winky Lux. And what we found was that the customers were not as interested in the platform as they were interested in the brand. And so we were getting all this feedback. We ended up doing this big focus group, really diving into how we could solve these problems. And what we found was that what people really loved was they loved Winky Lux. And the idea behind Winky Lux was that it was supposed to be like my happy place. It was supposed to be this thing that we were doing. When we built out the mood boards for the brand, it was all the things that made me happy. It was just all these, it had like puppies on it. So it was really, really, we leaned in, and because it wasn't really supposed to be the main part of the company, it was quite fearless in the branding. So now that became part of the purpose filter of the whole company. So to make a long story short, we ended up pivoting the company into just the brand. And while we were doing that, it was funny because our advisors were all like, whatever you do, just don't start a brand. So we ended up doing that anyway, and it worked out, but it was definitely, a longer road. But, to this day, we don't make anything unless we think it will like spike serotonin when the customer sees it. Unless we think the customer is going to get like a hit of dopamine when they look at the product, we don't really produce it, because that's our point of view on everything, is like creating beauty products that are so pretty and so special, and they have to be clean and plastic neutral and all the stuff that's table stakes. But beyond that, there's lots of companies out there making clean cosmetics. It has to be so beautiful when you get it, it makes you happy.
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry about that, but what
course.
I'm dying to know is you launched a major company. How did you raise the money? I mean, you had your friend come from New York, but what was the process like of actually building the company and getting the money and meeting with investors? You know, to be an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, what is that very specific journey?
A lot of highs and lows. I always feel like entrepreneurship is perfect for people who like really high highs and don't mind really low lows. So, we bootstrapped for the first 2 years, which was incredibly hard because it's not too hard to bootstrap an e-commerce marketplace because you have very little, the business model there is what's called affiliate marketing. And so you're creating, a mousetrap and people are coming in, they're landing on the site, you're optimizing for traffic and for click-throughs, but you don't hold any inventory and you make all of your money off of it's basically you're the advertiser
So
for other brands.
sorry, I keep jumping in because I'm mindful
Sure.
that we have some young girls here. What is bootstrapping?
Yeah, sure. That means we had to use our own money. And so I had a little bit of money from bonuses, and I mean, I'm not a lot, and just a little bit from my old company. So basically we used our retirement funds our retirement savings to bootstrap this company, to start it up ourselves. And, so we go from an affiliate marketing model, which can be done with a lot
What is
less
that?
capital.
What
So
is
that was the original marketplace. That was Glow Concept. So the idea was, we created a quiz, it was an intelligent quiz. It learned. And so people would come on, they would fill out a survey and we would tell them what products to buy. And that's great. That's a very VC, that stands for venture capital. It's a very venture capital, backable type of company. Especially at the time, because a lot of venture is trend driven. So there's a lot of, whenever starting a company, there's a lot of emphasis on looking at what trends are very hot. Like right now, almost every company has put the word AI behind their title because AI is just very, very popular right now. So it's a great way if you're out there fundraising, you want to be, if you were, I don't know, like Lucky Necklaces, now you're luckynecklaces.ai. So it's kind of funny, but at the time, in that moment in history, marketplaces were very, very hot in the VC world. So
Okay.
it was great. We were about to start fundraising, but what we found was that the customer did not care about the product. She was voting with her attention span. She was telling us what she wanted. And what she wanted was this strange little brand that we'd greened up on the side. And so by, pivoting the company and going into products, we ended up, really having to work with a lot of our suppliers to get terms with them. So, the problem with the products companies, you have to buy a lot of inventory in order for it to work. And that's, that cycle is called your working capital cycle. When you're buying the inventory and you're waiting for it to sell, that's your working capital. And that's a way oversimplification, but for everyone who's learning about like the structure of business, and as you get bigger and bigger and your customers get bigger and bigger, your working capital needs get bigger and bigger.
Right. Now,
So it's actually quite difficult to bootstrap for a very long time.
yeah, well, I wanted to ask you, what was that like for you personally? Were you scared to death that you would lose your house or I mean, you were responsible for how many people and, what was it like personally to be leading this effort?
Yeah, I think it was quite scary sometimes. At the time, we had about 7 employees when we got our first institutional funding, or when we raised our first round of capital. And that was what kept me up at night, was the people that were relying on us to, feed their families and pay for their kids' school or there was a lot of that. I think the way I dealt with it personally was kind of being really straightforward with our employees and giving them the respect of being totally transparent about, here's where we are. This is the great thing we're working towards. This is what we're going to build together. And there is risk in it. And then but the reward is that you're going to be part, if things go right, you have this and you're going to be part of something really great and amazing.
Did
And,
everybody have to sacrifice a lot for that in those early days?
Yes. Well, in the beginning, we had junior employees that we have always prided ourselves on basically paying market. So we've generally said, like, no one works for free. Obviously an intern who might be getting college credit would work for free, but they would have to, at the end of their, semester, create these presentations, and we would be helping them with that. So there was always a transfer of value. In general, we had fairly young employees in the beginning, and so we were paying market, but their salaries were just a lot lower. And it started to get a little scarier as we got more senior employees, and you really could see that they were really relying on us to make this thing work. So then we started fundraising. We got to $2 million in revenue, and we started fundraising. And Nate and I, at the time, my co-founder and I, we were basically living off of our savings, and it was getting pretty tight. So that was getting scarier and scarier and scarier. And also we were working really, really long hours, and I was living in like a studio apartment. So it was interesting. We did start fundraising, and we talked to, I think our first round, we talked to about 60 funds. So 60 funds before we got a yes. And then when we finally got a yes, then it became very easy. Then all of a sudden, all these funds like piled on. But getting to that one yes took 60 meetings, and this was pre-COVID. So you would go to each meeting. So we were like getting on the subway, we're flying to California. It was pretty brutal. And then 2 years after that, we raised another institutional round of funding. And then the third one, and then we haven't raised in 3 years. So it's been interesting. And the company moved to profitability this year.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
Yay.
it's so interesting that this quirky little idea that you came up with just because you loved it caught on fire like that. So who else made it grow? I mean, how did you all become like this, pivoting into this major brand, because that's what it is now?
Sure. Well, it was a lot of one foot in front of the other. And definitely the soul of the brand has become so much bigger than us, and it really belongs to our customers. And really, it's about joy and prioritizing joy in your daily life, even in these small things that you surround yourself with. And so that's great. But as far as like how it's been a major effort by a lot of people, and most of those people, it's my true belief that I hire people that are far smarter than me. So I think that my superpower is recognizing that talent, and learning how to recognize really, really bright people, and then investing in those people, because I certainly could not do a lot of the things that we do as a company on my own.
Wow.
And it was certainly in the beginning, we packed all the boxes, we coded the site, we bought the ads on Facebook, we did everything. But now, of course, and I like to look back at that and say, like, wow, we did everything kind of badly. Now we have really smart people who do all those things like really well. So, it was, but it was like the best of times and also the scariest of times, because it was a lot of fun in the beginning too, to have that feeling of endless potential. And now we definitely are more in like an optimization mode, where we still have so much growth ahead of us, but it's there. Sometimes we're a little less connected to some of the fun, like new ideas now have to be with more of a lens of like what could go wrong. Whereas in the very beginning, it doesn't matter what goes wrong because you have nothing to lose.
Right. Okay, well, I want to switch gears now, and let's talk about your makeup. We want to take kind of a scientific approach on this and find out what was the impetus to create which products, which are, what are the hot sellers, and lastly, we want a full breakdown on your pH balance lip stain. So,
Sure.
how do you make makeup?
Sure. It's actually really fun and really cool. And like bench chemists who work in makeup have a really cool job. There's so much new technology that comes out every year. It's a lot of fun. So there's a couple of different ways that it can work. You can go to a factory and say, I have an idea. Will you, or perhaps you can go to a lab and you can say, I have an idea. Here's my idea. Like, can you create a formula for me? And they may be able to do that to your specifications. Or you can go to a factory and say, like, what kind of products do you have that I might be able to build a variation on? Or you can, so there's like blue sky, and then there's like factory-led innovation. We have tended to do a lot of blue sky innovation, which is really fun, but a little bit intensive. And we work with about 30 different factories.
Mhm.
So what I'll give you, well, maybe we could just start, because it's kind of layered and complex, like how the product actually is born into the world. But the pH bombs are a good example.
I wanted to say, what we would like also is an explanation of what affiliate marketing is.
I can totally explain affiliate marketing. Okay. Your favorite website that you go to, let's say you really like Teen Vogue, and you go to teenvogue.com and you're reading an article on teenvogue.com, reading what we call listicle, like an article that says the top 10 TikTok famous under eye concealers, or top 10 lip balms, discovered on TikTok. This is just an example, and I'm only using that because we were in an article like that a few days ago. So it's top of mind. You go through and you look, you see there's a list. In that list, there are links that you can link to another company's website. And when you click, the publisher, who is in this story, Teen Vogue, they get a commission on that. So they get a fee, like they get some money.
Okay.
When you click through and you buy the product. So that's affiliate marketing. And there are lots of different types of affiliate marketing. Sometimes when you go to a site that says like, we'll give you discount codes, those are affiliate links. So they get paid when you use those discount codes. Affiliate marketing, influencer marketing is linked into affiliate marketing too. If you do anything where it says, like to know it, or you click through on an Instagram page and it says, here are my links to all of my Amazon favorites. Every time you click through one of those, if you convert, which means if you buy the product, person or that publisher gets a commission on the product. So it's an interesting business because it's much more competitive now, but at one point in time you could really build. So in our situation, we were building a really cool website that would give you like this service. It would tell you exactly what products to buy based on what look you wanted to create. And then we would get paid by all the companies that we promoted.
Oh, that's fascinating, actually. Wow. Okay, well, that's a very nice, thorough explanation. So let's go back to the science of the company and making products.
Yeah, totally. So we went to go visit some factories in China. All packaging in the entire beauty industry comes from China. So it's something to think about. Each product has it can have as many as 15 different suppliers that go into one product. There are the suppliers for the raw material. There's the lab that makes the product. That makes like the goop that's going inside of the product. There's the company that makes the injection molded plastic. Sometimes there's a different company that metallizes the plastic. Sometimes the company, if like when you're talking about a dropper, there's a different company that makes the dropper, that makes the glass bottle. There's the company that prints on the bottle. There's a company that makes the insert that goes inside the box that holds it tight. There's a company that makes the box, which we call the carton or the secondary packaging. There is a company that makes the stickers that go on the bottom. There's like all of these different businesses. And sometimes you'll work with a factory that manages that entire supply chain. And a lot of times, especially in our business, we tend to not do that. We tend to manage the supply chain ourselves. So we tend to work with, especially for some of our more high R&D products, like our flower balm, which is a balm that has an actual flower inside of it. So that's a real baby chrysanthemum, and it's grown in Brazil. And they use a plant dye to change the color of the baby chrysanthemum. So baby chrysanthemums are not a highly used raw material in the beauty world. So we end up buying those directly. And so we sort of manage that relationship. And then we have a partner that, that makes the packaging, and a partner that makes what we call the fill, which is the actual product itself. And then so on and so forth, like I said, with everything else. With the flower balm, or with the pH changing balms, that is a technology that's actually been in the market for a while. It has really seen a huge resurgence. We like to think we're kind of partially responsible for that resurgence. It is a molecule that explodes when it reacts with the chemicals that naturally occur in your skin.
Oh.
And so when those two molecules touch each other, one of them breaks. And so that's why you have that really light flush of pink that is more intense on some people and less intense on other people. And it tends to be super flattering because it really, it's quite sheer, and it really just looks like a flush on your lips. And that same technology is used in a lot of cheek products too. So that's the pH staining technology. But that was something we discovered that was being used a lot in Korea back in 2015. And we said, okay, is there a way to use this with like a really clean ingredient list? And so we worked with another factory to create kind of this idea around like the flower inside of it.
Well, now, and you have quite a strong ethic for your company. Can you tell us what your principles are, and what goes behind all of the product?
Sure. Well, definitely we won't make anything unless we can have a joyful point of view. There are a million, and there's like just a zillion beauty products in the market. There's more beauty products than we can ever use. So we don't feel like we need to make anything new unless it can be super joyful, and we can have a special point of view on it. So it has to be clean. It has to be plastic neutral. We have a goal by 2025 for 50% of all of our upstream manufacturing to be post-consumer recycled plastics. That's called PCR plastic. And then for downstream, we do supply chain tracking, which thankfully is something we've done since the beginning. So we know how much plastic we put into the world, and we know how much, and we also know how much waste we create with that plastic, because injection molding is inherently wasteful. The way the injection molding works is, and this is another fascinating part of the industry, you have an engineer that designs a mold on AutoCAD, and that mold is created sometimes with 3D printing, sometimes with in other ways, or sometimes like with an actual physical mold. Then once the mold's created, the machine takes all these little beads, these little plastic beads. And so you want 50% of those to be post-consumer recycled plastic. In many cases, we can use 100% post-consumer recycled plastic. Sometimes we have to use virgin plastic. And the machine melts it and then sprays it into the mold. It's really cool to watch. And then that plastic, a lot of times when you see like a beautiful gold package or like a beautiful metal silver package, it's actually not metal. It's plastic that goes inside, that has like a foil put over it, and then it goes in an oven that uses like a vacuum to shrink it, heat and a vacuum to shrink that and make it look like metal. So really cool, really interesting. And there's a lot to think about when you think about like plastic versus metal. So metal's easier to recycle, but metal's also a lot heavier, which means that as you transport it, you have your environmental impact actually, it goes down by virtue of having something that's easier to recycle, but it goes up by virtue of having to, you transport everything. Everything has to come on a boat, a plane, and then it has to come on a truck. And the heavier it is, the more the carbon footprint. So it's like a lot of different things to balance because we have a big environmental commitment. But with our supply chain tracking, we're able to understand exactly how much we put out. And then we work with a organization, a not-for-profit called Repurpose, and they fund plastic removal all over the world. And so I think they have dozens of different plastic removal sites. Most of them are in the developing world where it's, a really visceral problem, very apparent problem. And they not only are removing the plastic from the environment, but by doing so, especially in these areas that really need it most, they're also creating these like pretty high paying jobs for that area. So it's got this kind of like impact multiplier.
Do you think the environmental commitment is spreading to other makeup companies? I mean, how prevalent is your commitment to this in the rest of the industry?
Well, we're the largest plastic neutral company in the US right now, to the best of our knowledge. It is growing in popularity, which is awesome. It's really great. And a lot of big companies are working on it as well. Sustainability is harder than, say, clean ingredient lists, because clean ingredient lists are really an exercise in subtraction, where sustainability is a calculus exercise, if that makes sense. There are massive amounts of variables within variables. And, that is the one I just gave is one. Another one is, a lot of people were moving to glass, but glass has a lot of environmental impacts when it's being made. It uses a lot of energy, and then it's also incredibly heavy. So there's, plastic right now is the best. There are other types of plastic. There's new bioengineered plastic. And that's a really cool space. I mean, materials science is such a cool space that is changing and growing all the time. And I'm just blown away at like in 6 months, the technology gets incredibly, like so much better. But we're not quite there yet where we have an alternative that can function as well as plastic. So even some of the like, I feel like it's, it's almost 6 o'clock on the East Coast, and I'm like, fading a little bit. I can't find my words, but some of the new plastic that's made from things like bamboo, or more organic materials, even some of that can't really, it becomes unstable, or it makes formulations unstable when it's incompatible with certain formulations, or it breaks down really fast. And then there's a lot of there's safety issues with the breakdowns as well, like making sure that you can keep something airtight, that it's not going to cause it to get bacteria, or there's just so much to think about. I mean, but it is fascinating. It's like one of the most fun things. It's also one of the hardest things for the brand to communicate to the consumer, because the consumer generally wants a silver bullet. They want something that's really easy to understand. Like, this is sustainable, but there really is no such thing as sustainable consumption, right? Like, you could only consume nothing to be completely sustainable, right? Sustainability would be like, go to your next door neighbor's house and get anything she didn't like in her beauty cabinet and just use that. So in the, what we're trying to do is become much more sustainable than we were before, but there is no truly 100% sustainable solution other than, ending all consumption. So we have to do better in all of these different ways, upstream, meaning the way the products are made, downstream, the way the products are disposed of, the way the customer consumes the products. We want her to have an amazing experience with the products, because we want her to use them to the very end.
Yeah.
We want her to finish them. Not just because we want her to have that kind of relationship with us, but also because it's better for the world.
Okay, I have a couple of questions have just come in, and one of them is, how did you come up with the name Winky Lux?
It was a holding name. while we were designing the brand, it was made up. It came from a movie that definitely the young girls won't know, but some of the moms will know, called Best in Show, which is a Christopher Guest movie. And Winky is the dog that wins the imaginary dog show. And so, and then Lux is Latin for light. And so it was almost a joke. And it just became something we couldn't stop saying. And it was really fun to say. And so we said, okay, if our purpose is that we want to create joy, this name gives us joy. So we're keeping it.
Oh, I love that story. That's really great. And you said a word very early in our conversation that I think is probably one of the most important words for a young girl to learn, and that was the word agency. Can you explain to us what you mean by that and how that works in the world with a woman?
Sure. So agency, I'll have to look up the Webster's definition, but it's the ability to own or to control one's most immediate and long-term future. So the idea that you're in control of the situation and how much control, that's your agency. And I have actually now I really want to know
Well, you can look it up if you
I'm pulling it up. But yeah, action or intervention, especially such as to produce a particular effect. So that to me was really important in my career, was to have agency. And I think, I was not of a generation, I was in the working world far before the Me Too movement. So I certainly got to stand on the shoulders of the women who came before me, in it being better than it certainly was for my mother's generation, but still not great. And I think it has been a career long exercise in in really taking control of that. Understanding what it is that I want to do. There we go. Sense of agency.
Yeah, okay.
Dr. Sophia Yen, sense of
That I
agency
can-
refers to feelings of control over actions and their consequences.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like empowerment.
Mhm. And I think there's so many different ways to now have that in your career. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. I felt that I didn't mind the risk. I think entrepreneurship, it gives you the ultimate agency, but it also comes with just this incredible risk. And that part wasn't as scary to me as feeling like I had no control over how I was going to operate. And I also, before I started Winky Lux, as I was deciding to move on from the licensing firm and do something different, I just wrote on a piece of paper, I want to work with really smart people that I really respect and like every single day and make a living doing it. And I put it up on my bathroom mirror. And that was kind of that was the dream, was to create an organization full of people I really respect, admired, that we could build something great together. And so that was this has been a 7.5-year odyssey of doing that.
Wow. Well, we have a few minutes left here. We want to let you show us some products and maybe
Sure.
even demonstrate a couple of them. But we have, what advice would you give to girls who might eventually want to start their own company one day? That's the big one.
I love this. My first business was when I was 16. I got my driver's license on my 16th birthday, and I had saved up and I bought a car. It was not a very nice car, but it was a car nonetheless. And I went to a really, really large public high school, and there were 4,000 students at my high school. And if you took the bus, it could take you an hour each way.
Mm.
It was a really, really, really long bus ride. So I started basically at the time it was I called it a taxi service, but it was really like an Uber style thing. And I had a little fill out sheet, and I think it was $2 each way, but I would pick you up if you lived kind of in my zone. I would pick you up, and I made morning. So I would take myself and my brother and sister they're twins, and they were 2 years younger than me. So I was a junior and they were freshmen. So it was really popular with the freshman set. They needed to get her right to school. But I think the advice I would give to women who want to start their own company, who might want to start their own companies one day, is just learning some of those basic fundamentals of, if it's going to be a products company, you're going to, understand who your customer is, what your product is. Can you make the product for less than you can sell it for? Understanding things like, what are your margins? That means, the delta between what you're making the product for and what you're selling it for. And so just starting that in general, I really think even like selling Girl Scout cookies is a great place, that they're like, the girls are really learning like the fundamentals of baseline economics. And that's, and so just doing it, I think, is really great. And also for parents, talking to your daughters about money and finances a lot. So I think there's a big, almost like a reticence to talk to, and I have so many girlfriends who, even beyond the business world, I have girlfriends who are so smart and so amazing, who have a hard time necessarily like understanding investing, their personal investing in the stock market and things like that. And I think that if you have the knowledge and you can pass it on to your daughter at a young age, like what an exceptional gift for not to feel like an imposter when she's in that business world. And my mom worked growing up, and so I did go visit her in an office a couple, once every 2 months or something. I would probably get sick and have to go to work with her. And I just thought it was really cool. And I think there's something about just being there, like going places, like being in the room, that over long periods of time you become more and more comfortable.
Wow.
And so many women I know are so uncomfortable in groups, and there's so many, so many industries are so male dominated. So just getting used to that and feeling like I've done this before is really helpful. And then learning to pretend you've done it before if you haven't, or at least trick your brain into it.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, why don't you show us a few Winky Lux things? Like, what's your top seller? I see you've got product behind you.
Yes. Well, this is our trade show booth. This is just a picture background. Why don't I share my screen? These are some of my favorite products. Hopefully you can see this.
Look at that.
Ooh, glitter.
Yes, so fun. And this is actually not glitter because we have a commitment to the environment. We won't use any plastic glitter. So this is actually mica, which is a naturally occurring substance that gets layered inside of the raw material, and or mica is part of the bullet, which is what we call this part, the lipstick part. And it just reflects, so it looks like confetti and glitter, but it's actually just mica. So it dissolves when it hits your lips.
Wow.
Wow.
Is this one of your top sellers? I've never seen anything like this before.
This is one of number one seller of all time, is a under eye concealer called the Peeper Perfect. And that has hyaluronic acid, which is a really cool molecule that actually absorbs water from the air and traps it, which is such a cool thing. And it's collagen, vegan collagen, and hyaluronic acid based. So it's just very, very dewy as an under eye concealer. So that's our number one product, which sometimes surprises people. I think it is our number one product because it sort of went TikTok famous a few years ago. And also it's just a really great product. So it's heavily repurchased. But these are some of our more pretty products that are really fun to look at. And let me see. I can also share some of these. This is a really fun, this was one of you can see this is a highlighter called the Rose highlighter. So it's a Caranuba oil highlighter that is in cream blush form, or like cream highlighter form. And this was a really fun project because there's a lot of cream highlighters on the market. And so how do you differentiate that and make it something really special? Because again, we cannot make a product unless it is very, very special and beautiful. And so this was a really fun R&D project where we said, all right, there was new technology where you could harden it and make it into like a stick form, but nobody had really done these like floral molds before. So we tested it in a bunch of different ways, and it actually launched with blushes. We call it the Cheeky Rose blush. And then this has been the new evolution of that, which is in these like really creamy highlighters.
It's beautiful.
And our biggest issue with this product, well, it's a big seller, but one of our biggest issues is people are afraid to use it because so they don't want to touch it, mess it up.
That's exactly me. I have it. It's too beautiful.
But definitely you should use it. It's
Natalie,
great.
hey Natalie, it's Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, I'm here. I gave that blush to Sophia for Christmas.
Amazing.
And I just wanted to say hi to everyone too. I've known Natalie for a very long time, and I introduced her to Sophia, which is sort of like but I've been fortunate enough in the early days to go work part of the time from Natalie's office, and the buzz and the culture and the young women, there is a vibe, if you will, and an environment in your office, which and I've worked 10 years on Wall Street and worked in tech and, health and there's a culture and a feeling you get physically in the Winky Lux office space that I've never felt before. There's an electricity. And I would also say, why is Natalie so successful? If you could impart this on young women, is you really do work your, what off. And I've seen Natalie in the office in an amazing office. But I remember one time I went home at 2, and I think you were there till 4 a.m. But you're also like, you deserve every success because you're simply, not only are you incredibly creative and innovative, but you're probably one of the hardest working people I know. And when I share your products with my friends, and I brought them all, put them in like goodie bags for Christmas lunch last minute, and I will admit it's whatever Target had in stock, which, that's a challenge in San Francisco. I literally was like, what can I get from Winky Lux? I need to be at this party like tomorrow. And I put the Winky Lux lip glosses because they're just so fun, and the bossy glosses, and everyone loved it. And everyone's like, what is this product? And I said, it's my friend. Like, she created this from scratch, and people are so impressed. Anyway, that's my Natalie.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a mutual admiration society. Sarah is the best. Thank you so much.
Well, Sarah,
and I very, very rarely work that late. So, but yes, Sarah did catch me on a
day.
really, really crazy night, and definitely a hashtag entrepreneurship. Like it's a lot of, especially in the beginning, a lot of just, I mean, what did Einstein say? 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. It's never truer than in building businesses.
And I think you've done it in an incredibly tough, competitive market. And you definitely did, like, when people see your product and see why it's different, because otherwise I could see, and it was challenging for you raising money because people were like, oh, another makeup company, and they don't, without really delving deep into your product and what makes you different and what makes you special and what makes customers say, wow, Winky Lux has this different product I can't get anywhere else. But people have to be willing to really delve, look at your products to know what makes you different. But that's also can be difficult raising money from people that aren't necessarily taking a good look at your product and just consider you another makeup company, because you're so much more than that.
Well, thank you. And yes, it's definitely it is hard for women to raise capital in general. We get 2% of all venture dollars. So we're already layer on the it's getting better though. I mean, it's going to be better for the girls after us. The only real way to change it too is like for there to be more successful female entrepreneurs who then pay it forward and invest
100%.
in the next generation. But yes, I have a running list of wacky questions I have gotten from male investors.
Oh God.
Ranging from things, from how long, what's the use of a lipstick? Like, how long does it take till you get to the end of the lipstick to buy the next lipstick? And I'm like, well, no one ever gets to the end of a lipstick. To things like, when did you know you wanted to be a makeup artist? And I was like, when I was never years old, because I'm not a makeup artist. So, like, just really funny stuff. But I'm keeping it as a document in case I ever write a book. I just want to go through and maybe I'll get from all of my entrepreneur friends, like Sarah and Sophia, maybe I'll get some of y'all's funny stuff as well.
Well, you know what? We are just about out of time. And Sarah, thank you so much for telling us all of the other things, because that was a fascinating aspect of Natalie's story. So Natalie, thank you so much. This has just been fascinating from every single angle. And we're so grateful that you could come, and we're excited about Winky Lux. I'm gonna go out and buy that concealer tomorrow, probably.
It is great. I will I'll make this my last screen share, but this is the actual concealer itself. It's won a bunch of awards. I'm obsessed with it. I think it's the best concealer in the world. Obviously, I'm not biased at all, but we did toil over it for many, many moons to get it perfect. So I think it's great.
Oh, well, that's
But please, like, please, like, let me know if anyone ever has any questions, or if you guys are ever in the area. We have a standalone store. We have the Winky Lux store, and we are opening one in New York. It looks like the end of this year. So the stores are really fun, and they're a really great way to go in. They're really fun for everybody, like from a little kid up into like a someone in their 80s. Like, everyone can really have fun in our stores. They're very experiential.
Come open one in Silicon Valley.
I want to. It's
Please,
expensive out there.
We'll help you find a lesser known city like Mountain View or Sunnyvale or San Jose. People
Well,
go
Palo
there.
Alto.
Yeah.
Palo Alto is
I mean, it's so pricey. It's crazy. I live in New York City, and I'm always like, wow, it's crazy. I'm like, this cocktail is the exact same price as the one in New York. So, yes, but it's secret, like you drive through, you're like, oh, I'm this lush green suburb, but it turns out it's just New York prices in a suburban environment. So, but it's such a cool place, and yeah, I can't wait to catch up with everyone next time I'm out there.
Anyway, so we will wrap things up now, and it's our custom to turn things over to Michelle, who gives our kind of final message.
Oh, this has been so much fun. Oh my God, Natalie.
Thank
I
you.
can't wait
Thank
for the concealer.
It's my pleasure. It's my
I
pleasure.
mean,
Anyone who's shopping on the site, you can always use friend of Natalie as a discount code. That's an ongoing discount code. Friend of Natalie. No H, Natalie.
Thank you. I always have to do the close and the pitch that says, if you don't ask, you don't get. So we want to keep going forward. I am dedicated to this group with my Asian sister, Sophia, and we must go forward. So anything you want to give us, even a share of stock, you can match it. We can do it. We can do anything you want to do. And frankly, we are dedicated to, if you can't see it, you don't know. And so many of us have to reinvent ourselves or invent ourselves, because where I grew up in Kearney, New Jersey, they didn't make people like me.
Yeah.
So we're all here, and we've made people, and now we have to stand up and shine. So anything you can throw our way, we're open, and we thank you for spending some of your Sunday with us. And Natalie, you're an inspiration.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure, and it'll be my pleasure to support you guys.
Thank
So
you.
we'll definitely chat, and thanks for hanging out with me on Sunday.
Thank you for joining us today.